The video you're about to watch was first live streamed on Think Papanui's Facebook page on Wednesday the 31st of August 2022. It's also available on after the fact on the Facebook page as well as here on YouTube. Hope you find it useful and interesting. Feel free to drop me a comment or contact me through any of the many ways you can reach me. Have a look below the video or during this video for more information on that. Kia ora. In this video, I'm going to give a bit of a rundown on the agenda for this week's meeting of our local community board, the Waipapa Papanui-Innes Board, something of a historic meeting this week for reasons I'll come back to, and also talk a bit about the local body elections that are coming up in the next, or over the next month. Kia ora, I'm Simon Britten. I'm the founder and curator of the Think Papanui Community Engagement Initiative. Think Papanui is all about engaging local community, providing local news to the community and keeping the community informed of what's happening on the with the community board and the council in particular. Let's take a wee look at what we're going to take a talk through today. Should be up on the slides up there somewhere, hopefully. Just a quick introduction to Think Papanui. I'll go through the agenda for our board meeting this week. I'll talk about the local body elections, and we should have all of that done in the next 5 or 10 minutes. So have a watch through. You might be watching this live on Facebook. You might be watching it after the fact on Facebook or potentially on YouTube as well. Think Papanui has a YouTube channel there. You're welcome to comment while we're live, or of course you can comment while after the fact as well. I'll keep an eye out for questions or comments that do come in. Let's take a look about Think Papanui. We should have a picture on the screen there somewhere. So Think Papanui can be found on the website thinkpapanui.nz. It's also is, of course, on Facebook and YouTube. One of those platforms is where you'll be watching it now. It is also on Instagram, and there's a weekly email newsletter you can sign up to via the website if you'd like just a roundup of news from the local community delivered to your inbox. You can see the kind of stories I'm covering on Think Papanui, local election candidates, community board agenda, what's happened in the last community board meeting. We had a planting day at the Cranford Basin just recently. Some news on that. When I say we, I mean we, the community. That was led by Conservation Volunteers New Zealand. The Redwood Hotels host to the Northern Community Market. That's coming up again this weekend. That was a post about the previous one. It's Father's Day on Sunday. Maybe pop down to the market this Saturday. And roadworks, things that are happening in our community, those kind of things. So let's go back to the top of that. I'll just find some buttons here. So that's an introduction to Think Papanui. I hope it's useful. I know a lot of people have found it useful over these last few years. I've been running Think Papanui for 6 years now, and I really enjoy it. It's a great way just to connect with the local community and provide a bit of useful information and news. So second thing on the list today was to talk about was what's happening in the local body election. If I just come back to the website, you'll see the community board meeting is the next thing to talk about. I've posted a wee summary of what's on the agenda, just done a wee article here talking about that. It includes links to the community board's YouTube channel and Facebook page where that meeting will be live streamed. It is also open to the public. You can pop down to the boardroom in the back of the Papanui Library and Service Centre this Friday morning at 9 a.m. There's a link here to the agenda for that meeting, and I'm going to pop that open just because it gives a bit more detail than the wee summary I've got here. So let's take a look at that. Table of contents at the front, of course. There's a few procedural things that the board will always go through at the start of meetings. The first really interesting bit is the opportunity for public participation. There's an opportunity at the start of every board meeting to come along and speak in our public forum. You can have a time slot of up to 5 minutes just to speak to the board about any issue, local issues that you want to raise with the board or things you want to flag to us as board members. The second part of that then is deputations. Deputations are slightly different. That's when you want to speak to an item that's on the agenda of that meeting. Get a little bit more time typically with those. And petitions can come to the board as well. Not so common. Petitions often come up at the council level. If there is something local though, there's an opportunity to present that to a community board. We'll just move down a little bit. We're expecting some correspondence at this meeting, and also there's some notes there in that correspondence section from a forum that the community board held last week at Te Oroho o Te Otahi. Some nice pictures there and a bit of a summary of what was discussed in that. And then we're on to the business items of the agenda, if you like. The first one of those is a recommendation to grant a ground lease to the Shirley Community Trust. The Trust has a number of its facilities at McFarlane Park, just on Aitchison Avenue, over in Shirley, and in this particular case it's in relation to the former Plunkett building, which is now a community cafe operated by the Trust. Currently the Trust doesn't have a lease for the land that the cafe sits on, so that's an item. The board has the delegation to approve that. The next one is some no stopping restrictions in the Langdons Road area. Traffic in that area is a pretty hot issue for residents and people who pass through that community, as I'm well aware, being one of them myself, and also hearing from community members. There's some details there that's explicitly what we're being asked to approve. It's possibly a little bit easier to look at the plans. We'll find those just further on in the agenda. You can see here detailed out where those no stopping lines are proposed to be. So the Hoani Sales Street intersection and also Chapels and Langdon. Particularly the Langdons Road, Chapel Street there. You might be aware it can be pretty chocker at that intersection, with vehicles wishing to enter from Langdons Road and also wishing to exit to it. So this should just improve sight lines, provide a bit more safety in that area. There's a photo there that sort of illustrates what the issue is. This one is, I think, the Hoani Sales intersection, just showing, here's a vehicle, here's some parked cars. It's pretty hard to see what's happening there. So the board will deal with that and move on to some proposals for PT, public transport infrastructure improvements for Route 17, which passes along Wairakei Road, which is one boundary of the Papanui ward. And there's a number of bus stop improvements that have been proposed as part of a package of changes to improve that bus route. It's now the port-to-port route has increasing frequencies coming on that route, and some improvements to stops, and you can see all of that detailed out in here. Along Wairakei Road where those are proposed to be. Some changes also on the south side of Wairakei Road. You'll see that on at least one of those plans. That's not for the Papanui-Innes Board to decide. That's a Fendleton Waimaori Hereward decision, because the road is a boundary. Also here's some feedback from consultation that was undertaken and a few more details. Then another issue relevant to the Papanui area in particular is a proposed signalised pedestrian crossing for Northcote Road to support Marion College, which you may be aware is under construction now under the canopy of the former Foodstuffs warehouse, accessed off Lydia Street off Northcote Road. Best way to take a look at what that means is to scroll down to the plan here. You can see here what's being proposed is a signalised crossing on Northcote Road just adjacent to the Lydia Street intersection. Some other changes to that intersection: a restriction to left turn only out of Lydia Street, 30 km/h speed limit in Lydia Street. There's a crossing down here in a lane splitter to provide that pedestrian access to Marion College. I've heard a few bits of feedback on this from the community already when I posted this agenda, including a question about why not signalise the whole intersection. If you take a wee read through this document, you'll find some feedback on that. Just up slightly further. Alternative options. Here we go. Full signalisation has been investigated. Essentially, it's not been found to be necessary, especially considering that Lydia Street will be left out only, and left out only on Lydia Street is a requirement of the resource consent for the Pack and Save supermarket that's going in on part of that same site. These signalised pedestrian crossing itself is also a resource consent condition associated with the Marion College implementation. So it's a decision that has been placed on us by the resource consent grant for Marion College. The finessing of the detail of exactly how that looks remains a council and community board decision. Included in the report for that item too is a summary of the public feedback. There was public consultation on that, which I posted about on Think Papanui. Next up, we have some funding for Summer with Your Neighbours. You can see here a list of 29 grants that are proposed, totalling a bit over $3,000 in Summer with Your Neighbours funding. That's an initiative that's now citywide. Started out as Neighbourhood Week, and it was an initiative of the Shirley Papanui Board, now Papanui-Innes. So it's really great to have seen that have really long legs as an initiative that came out of the area that I'm representing on the community board. A few more details on that there. Then, because we're heading to an election, this Friday is the last meeting of the board before the election. Things change a little bit after that. So we have a recommendation just to put some transitional arrangements in place in the event that funding applications to the board's Youth Development Fund come in the meantime. So we're giving some staff delegations there if we go ahead and accept those proposals. And second to last item on the list, a couple of funding applications just for relatively small amounts from a couple of local or Christchurch community groups. We've got an American Football Society here, who knew, and also Avon Sequence dancing. If you want to know more about that, jump onto this agenda and have a wee read through that decision matrix right there. Finally on the agenda is an information exchange. This always sits at the end of our agendas, and it's an opportunity for elected members to update each other on what's happening in the neighbourhood. So let's just come back to another view. There we go. So that's a quick rundown on what's on the agenda. It is available on the Council's website, as I've just shown. It's also available as a PDF, which can be a little bit easier to navigate, especially when it's a big document. So feel free to have a look for that. Then next on the list to talk about, just really quickly, was local body elections. I'm really keen to see the local community turn out to vote and engage with that process, ask questions of candidates, consider who you might support, etc. And there's a couple of places you can go if you'd like some more information about that. One is the Council's website, ccc.govt.nz, and we'll find at the moment a big orange tile here, which will take you to the landing page for the Council for all things election related, including a link to view who the candidates are. The Council's pre-election report talks about sort of all the current issues, finances, etc. If I expand here under candidates, at the moment we can see a list of confirmed candidates, also something I've posted about on Think Papanui, and you can grab a PDF with all the candidates' contact details and more information on enrolling, etc., voting if you are a candidate, some information there, etc., etc. Another really useful resource that I have just posted about today on Think Papanui is the policy.nz guide to local candidates. This is a great website, independent, nationwide. You can jump in here if you want to look at mayor, councils, community boards, local boards, depending on what part of New Zealand you're in. And if I pop into this, for example, for this area, there's two ways we can do this. We can jump in, you can put your address in here if you're not sure what ward or area you're in, but we can also browse a list. And if I go to that list, I will find Canterbury, Christchurch City Council, here we are, and we can click and look at who's standing for mayor, who's standing for council in all the wards, including of course Papanui, who is standing in as community board candidates in those areas. I'm just going to jump into the community board just for laughs. Papanui, so for the community board we actually have two candidates nominated for the two positions. That's Emma Nyrish, our current chair, and myself. So Emma and I are in the slightly unusual position of going straight through and being elected unopposed. That's not the case in almost every other situation around Christchurch, including for our councillor, for Papanui, for mayor, for regional council, etc. You can jump in there if you want to know a bit more about me. I've still completed the survey. You can see a little bit of an overview for me, and if we can pop in here and look at policies for both Emma and myself in Papanui, under a bunch of headings: climate change, environment, housing, jobs, etc. So feel free to jump in on that. You'll find it at policy.nz, or if you head to Think Papanui, you will find it there as well. That's pretty much everything I have today. I'm just going to, while I wrap up, I'm going to pop back and see if there is had any comments or questions at the moment. Feel free to drop me a comment or question, feedback on this video. I can see I've been going for 13 minutes. That's pretty much long enough. You can always reach me at these contact details here, thinkpapanui.nz or facebook.com/thinkpapanui, or via any of the other platforms that Think Papanui's on. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you engaging, and talk to you again soon. Kia ora.